Let's get it. TV. Let's get it. Today's topic: KD, Cupcake, the choke artist. We Job TV. Stop in, drop in. Hit that subscribe. There's a lot of words I can use, but the best one that fits KD right now is Salty, Mr. Salty. When the getting gets tough, he packs his bags out. Let's get it, shop. Packs his bags up and run.
What did you learn from that one game alone about Hungary?
Well, I learned that the Brooklyn Nets are going to the
Let's get it, shop.
out.
The chemistry, as soon as we can build that, as soon as we can build a court together, it's going to be scary hours.
The Brooklyn Nets are going to win a championship this year or next year or maybe both.
Followed by Holiday. Durant for three. Comes up with an air ball.
6 months later.
The Brooklyn Nets are trading James Harden to Philadelphia for the 76ers. Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and 2 first-round picks.
Several months later.
22 seconds left. And Durant first miss.
According to our Adrian Wojnarowski, Kevin Durant's manager, Rich Kleiman, has told him that Kevin Durant has requested a trade from the Brooklyn Nets. And so I would like to bring in...
It's going to be scary hours.
Kevin Durant, once again, has broken the NBA universe, as after only 3 years in Brooklyn and playing 106 games, he is already requesting a trade. Now let's be very, very clear, KD doing this is a legacy-altering move. As going to Brooklyn in 2020, this was his team and his opportunity to build a championship contender from the ground up. And as you could have guessed, he failed miserably. At first when he got to Brooklyn, it was a 1-2 punch of him and Kyrie, then they got James Harden, it was quote-unquote scary hours, and they were a super team or the runaway title favorites. Then Harden was traded, they got Ben Simmons, and were swept in the first round by the Boston Celtics. This 3-year odyssey for Kevin Durant in Brooklyn was a total and complete failure. And I'm not afraid to say it, this is the biggest super team failure in NBA history. Looking back on it, what team even comes close to this Nets team in terms of disappointment? Not last year's Lakers, not the 2011 Heat, the 04 Lakers. No team ever was this bad and this disappointing. As Kevin Durant in 3 years in Brooklyn won one playoff series. And what makes it even worse for this Brooklyn team is that Kevin Durant, as well as Kyrie Irving, had a big say in all their rosters. Of course, getting James Harden was a very big move, but also DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin, Goran Dragic, Patty Mills, KD and Kyrie undoubtedly had a say in all those moves. And if you're looking to place blame at one person's feet, I think KD and Kyrie primarily have to be the blame. I know Joe Tsai and Brooklyn management, they were awful, but KD and Kyrie still have to be held accountable. Also, one thing I do want to point out, look at Kevin Durant's 2 big free agent moves. In 2016, when he went to Golden State, that's after blowing a 3-1 lead to that same Warriors team. Now this year in the first round, he was swept by Boston and proceeded to leave the team and request a trade. That is 2 very, very slimy exits for Kevin Durant, one of the best players in NBA history. And when talking about his overall legacy, these 2 moves are being brought up on page 1, chapter 1. And of course, one thing you do have to talk about is Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors. As unlike Kevin Durant, Curry by himself has been successful and won multiple championships. This year, winning his 4th ring. And really after 2019, both these guys' careers have gone in opposite directions. Curry ascending, and Kevin Durant plateauing or even declining in the all-time rankings. And for me personally, I don't think I've ever seen a bigger drastic difference in the way 2 former teammates operate on and off the court. Steph Curry for his career, he's going to play 15 plus years with one team and win multiple championships. Kevin Durant in the last 8 years has played on 3 different teams with numerous failures, bad decisions, as well as roster mishaps. And the cherry on top of this shit sundae is that Kevin Durant's 2 teams he wants to be traded to are the Heat and Suns, the 2 #1 seeds in both conferences. Once again, Kevin Durant, he is front-running, and he's leaving a team when the going gets hard. Something Steph Curry has never done and will never do in his career. And to add even more context as to why today is so crazy, Kevin Durant after 2017, his legacy was in a 200-foot hole. And since then, he's been trying to get out of that hole and has failed miserably. And by requesting a trade, that hole just got 100 feet deeper. As hypothetically speaking, let's say he goes to the Heat or even Phoenix. If he wins a championship with those teams, does that change his legacy and the overall perception that he can't win without stacking the deck? For me personally, it would change absolutely nothing and the needle would not be moved. As the Suns this past year, they won 64 games, the best record in the NBA, and the year before that made the finals. And even that Heat team, they were a very good Eastern Conference contender, and in 2020 made the NBA Finals. If either of those teams won with Kevin Durant, the overall ring will be more important to Chris Paul as well as Jimmy Butler, as those guys, unlike KD, built those teams up into contenders. That's why for every NBA fan, including myself, building a championship team from the ground up, like Steph Curry, like Magic, Bird, Jordan, Hakeem, all those legends, is far more important than chasing rings and hopping on a super team. And just like Steph Curry, one guy who's winning from this news is LeBron James, as once again his former teammate Kyrie Irving has failed at building a super team as well as a championship contender. In Boston as the leader, he failed miserably, and in Brooklyn once again, he fell flat on his face. And looking back to 2018, it feels like forever ago, but at that point Kyrie Irving, his legacy was already sealed, as leaving LeBron James is one of, if not the biggest mistakes in NBA history. You simply don't leave one of the top 10 players of all time. You don't leave Larry Bird, Kobe, Duncan. You do not leave those guys to build your own team. Unfortunately for Kyrie Irving, he learned that lesson the hard way. And when Kyrie's career is finally over, I think looking back on him, he'll be a great individual talent, one of the most skilled players ever, that's undeniable. But without LeBron James, he was virtually nothing, and it's definitively clear you cannot trust him with the keys to your franchise. Now, one thing I do want to hit on is player mobility and its overall impact on today's game. As 25-35 years ago, most of the time players and superstars spent their career on one team or possibly two. Nowadays, NBA superstars, they're passed around like Kylie Jenner, going from team to team and wreaking havoc. And if you get someone like a Steph Curry, a Jason Tatum, even a Luka Doncic, having those guys is invaluable, as for the most part, they're going to play 10 to 15 years with one franchise. And I think player mobility in large part, it can be very great and exciting, but if you want to win a championship, usually it's not the best way to go. Smart picks, smart trades, picking up expiring contracts, not going all in for one superstar, that wins you championships and makes you a great NBA team. Now, looking back to Kevin Durant at this point, he's going to be 34 years old in year 16, coming off multiple injuries. Let's say KD, whatever team he goes to, he wins one championship and it's a pretty decent run. Even if he wins that one championship, compare that to Steph Curry, a guy who won 4 with one team. I would argue Steph's championship this year in 2022 will be more valuable than KD's 3 rings combined. As once again, building it organically is far more impressive than being a frontrunner and going to teams that are already established. And whenever KD retires, I think his overall career will be a case study on player mobility gone wrong. Looking at LeBron James, he tried to follow his blueprint, but ultimately failed, winning half as many championships. So that right there is my overall final point, that KD and Kyrie once again, they messed up big time and failed miserably with their super team. And even looking past them, Nets management, they have a big brunt to bear for this, as their franchise the next 10 to 15 years is going to be a dumpster fire and absolutely dead. They already have no fan base, but going forward, they have no superstar, no all-star, or any future prospects. They went all in on these 2 superstars and willingly gave them the keys to the franchise. And one positive thing for this video that I'm very proud of is that the Boston Celtics quite literally ruined the Nets franchise twice in less than a decade. Definitely very impressive, and one thing I'm exceptionally proud of.